Part 1. The stars looked different from this part of space. Commander Jacob Hayes stood on the bridge of the Wanderer and stared at the view screen with tired eyes. The colony ship had been traveling for 3 months, and they were supposed to be halfway to New Terra by now. But a navigation error had sent them off course, deep into uncharted territory where no human had ever been. "Commander, we're picking up something on the sensors," said Lieutenant Katie Morgan from her station. She was young, barely 25, and this was her first deep space assignment. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. Jacob walked over to her station and looked at the display. There was definitely something out there, drifting near an asteroid field about 2 million kilometers away. The shape was all wrong for a natural object. "It's a ship," Katie said quietly, "but the readings are strange. The metal composition doesn't match anything in our database." Jacob felt his heart beat faster. An alien ship. In all his years in space, he had never encountered another intelligent species. Humanity had been searching for decades, sending probes and messages into the void. But the universe had remained stubbornly silent, until now. "Wake up Dr. Caroline Brooks and get a security team ready," Jacob ordered. "We're going to take a closer look." 2 hours later, Jacob floated through the airlock of the alien vessel. His helmet light cut through the darkness, revealing corridors that were too tall and too narrow for human comfort. The walls were covered in symbols that meant nothing to him, beautiful and alien in their complexity. Dr. Brooks floated beside him, her scientific equipment scanning everything they passed. She was 40 years old, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The ship is old," she said over the radio. "At least 50 years, maybe more. There's no power, no life support. Whatever happened here, it happened a long time ago." They moved deeper into the ship, following a corridor that seemed to lead to the center of the vessel. The security team stayed close, their weapons ready for any threat. But the ship felt empty, abandoned, like a tomb floating in space. Then they found the chamber. It was circular, with walls that glowed faintly with residual energy. In the center stood a single cryogenic pod, its surface frosted with ice. Through the transparent cover, Jacob could see a figure inside. "Oh my God," Caroline whispered. The figure was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin was a deep violet color, and silver markings traced elegant patterns across her face and arms. They pulsed with a faint bioluminescent glow, like fireflies under her skin. She looked young, maybe 20 years old by human standards, with delicate features and long dark hair that floated around her face. "Is she alive?" Jacob asked. Caroline moved closer with her scanner. "The pod is still functioning, barely. It's running on emergency power that should have died decades ago. She's in stasis, but the readings are wrong. This pod wasn't designed for long-term storage. Her cellular structure is degrading. Can we wake her up? If we don't, she'll die in that pod within a few weeks. The question is whether she'll survive the revival process." Jacob made his decision quickly. "Get this pod back to the Wanderer." "We're taking her with us." The security chief, a big man named Greg Palmer, stepped forward. "Sir, we don't know what she is or where she came from." "This could be dangerous." "She's dying," Jacob said firmly. "We're not leaving her here to die alone in the dark." It took 6 hours to move the pod back to the Wanderer and set it up in the medical bay. Dr. Peter Grant, the ship's medical officer, worked with Caroline to understand the alien technology. Peter was a calm man in his 50s who had seen everything during his career. But even he looked nervous as they prepared to wake their guest. The ship's crew gathered outside the medical bay, their faces pressed against the observation windows. News had spread quickly through the Wanderer, and everyone wanted to see the alien. Some looked excited, others worried or afraid. "Beginning revival sequence," Peter announced. The pod hissed as it opened, releasing a cloud of cold vapor. The violet-skinned woman inside took a sudden gasping breath. Her eyes snapped open, revealing irises that were pure silver, reflecting the lights of the medical bay like mirrors. She looked around wildly, her chest heaving with panic. Then she saw the humans surrounding her and screamed. It was a sound of pure terror, high and piercing. She tried to climb out of the pod, but her legs wouldn't support her. Jacob rushed forward instinctively, reaching out to catch her before she fell. The moment he touched her, something strange happened. The silver markings on her skin flared bright, and Jacob felt a wave of emotion wash over him. Fear, confusion, pain, loss. It was overwhelming, and he almost pulled away. But instead he held on, supporting her weight and speaking in a calm, steady voice. "It's okay. You're safe. "We're not going to hurt you." She didn't understand his words, but something in his tone seemed to reach her. Her breathing slowed slightly, though she still trembled in his arms. Over the next few days, a routine developed. The alien woman, whom they still had no name for, stayed in the medical bay under constant observation. She was terrified of most of the crew, flinching away whenever anyone came too close. But she seemed to tolerate Jacob's presence, and gradually, she began to accept Caroline as well. Caroline worked tirelessly to establish communication. She tried mathematical symbols, visual patterns, anything that might bridge the gap between their languages. The alien watched these attempts with intense focus, her silver eyes tracking every gesture. On the fourth day, Caroline had a breakthrough. She drew a simple picture of the alien woman and pointed to it, then to the woman herself. Then she drew a picture of herself and said clearly, "Caroline." The alien woman studied the drawings for a long moment. Then, in a voice that was musical and strange, she pointed to herself and said, "Lyra." Caroline's face broke into a huge smile. "Lyra," she repeated, and the alien woman nodded. It was a small step, but it was a beginning. Jacob spent hours with Lyra, trying to help her adjust to her new surroundings. He brought her food from the ship's galley, testing different items until he found things she could eat. He showed her how the medical bay equipment worked, demonstrating that it was meant to help, not harm. Slowly, carefully, he helped her understand that she was safe. Lyra proved to be intelligent and curious. Once she realized the humans meant her no harm, she began trying to communicate more actively. She drew pictures, simple at first but growing more complex. Through these images, Jacob began to understand fragments of her story. She drew a large building with tall towers, a palace perhaps. She drew many figures with violet skin like hers, gathered in what looked like a celebration. Then her drawings turned dark. She drew fire and fighting, figures running in panic. She drew herself as a small child, held by someone as they fled. The next drawing showed a different ship and different figures, these ones with sharp features and cruel expressions. They were not the same species as Lyra. Her hand shook as she drew chains and a small figure alone in darkness. Jacob felt anger rise in his chest as he understood. Lyra had been kidnapped as a child, taken from her home during some kind of attack. She had been a prisoner, kept in that failing cryogenic pod for years, maybe decades. "We'll help you," he told her, even though he knew she couldn't understand all his words. "We'll find your family. I promise." Lyra looked at him with those strange silver eyes, and something in his tone must have conveyed his meaning. She reached out tentatively and touched his hand, a gesture of trust. But not everyone on the Wanderer was happy about their alien guest. Lieutenant Amanda Pierce, the ship's political officer, came to Jacob's quarters one evening with a stern expression. "Commander, we need to talk about the alien situation," she said. "Her name is Lyra," Jacob replied. "Fine. Lyra. Sir, you're getting too attached to her. We have protocols for first contact situations and you're not following them. We should be keeping her isolated and studying her from a distance. Instead, you're treating her like a pet project. She's not a pet, Amanda. She's a person who was kidnapped and imprisoned. She's been through trauma that we can barely imagine." "That's exactly my point," Amanda said, her voice rising. "We don't know anything about her species, her culture, or her intentions. For all we know, she could be dangerous. And even if she's not, harboring an alien refugee could cause an interstellar incident. We should contact Earth Command and let them decide what to do with her." "No." Amanda blinked in surprise. "Sir?" I said no. We're not handing her over to be studied like a lab specimen. Lyra stays here under our protection until we can find her people and return her home. Commander Hayes, I'm going to have to file an official report about this. Do what you have to do, Lieutenant. But my decision stands. After Amanda left, Jacob sat alone in his quarters wondering if he was making the right choice. He knew Amanda had valid concerns. He was getting attached to Lyra, and that could cloud his judgment. But every time he thought about sending her away, he remembered the terror in her eyes when she first woke up, and the way she had slowly learned to trust him. No, he couldn't abandon her. Not now. In the medical bay, Dr. Peter Grant was reviewing Lyra's medical scans with a worried expression. When Jacob came to check on Lyra the next morning, Peter pulled him aside. Part 2, 3 weeks had passed since they found Lyra, and the Wanderer continued its journey through unexplored space. Jacob had made it his personal mission to help Lyra adjust to life aboard the ship, spending several hours each day teaching her English and learning about her past. The language lessons happened in a small observation room that looked out at the stars. Jacob would point to objects and speak their names slowly and clearly. Lyra was a quick learner, her silver eyes bright with concentration as she repeated each word back to him. "Star," Jacob said, pointing through the window. "Star," Lyra echoed, her accent making the word sound musical. "Ship," he continued, tapping the floor beneath them. "Ship." "Friend," Jacob said, pointing to himself. Lyra studied him for a moment, then smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen from her, and it transformed her face completely. "Friend," she said softly. As her English improved, Lyra began to share more about her past. She told him about memories that felt like dreams, fragments of a life she could barely remember. She remembered a large palace with gardens that grew flowers in every color imaginable. She remembered a woman's voice singing to her at night, gentle and loving. She remembered feeling safe and happy. "How old were you?" Jacob asked one evening. "When they took you." Lyra held up one hand, all 5 fingers extended. "She was 5 years old. Just a baby, really." Jacob felt his anger at her kidnappers grow stronger. "The woman who sang to you," he said carefully. "Do you remember what she looked like?" Lyra closed her eyes, struggling to recall. "Tall, strong, she had marks like mine." She touched the silver patterns on her arm, but many more. She wore, Lyra struggled to find the words, "head thing shiny. A crown," Jacob suggested. Lyra nodded eagerly. "Crown. Yes. Big crown." Caroline, who had been listening to their conversation from across the room, looked up sharply. "Jacob, if what she's describing is accurate, that woman might have been royalty. And if Lyra is related to her." The implications hung in the air. Were they harboring an alien princess? If so, there was probably someone out there looking for her. Someone with resources and power. Someone who might not be happy that humans had found her first. But before they could explore this idea further, the ship's alarm system erupted in a shrill warning. Jacob's communicator crackled to life with Katie's urgent voice. "Commander Hayes to the bridge immediately. We have incoming ships and they're not friendly." Jacob ran to the bridge with Caroline close behind him. Lyra followed despite his gesture for her to stay safe in the observation room. When they arrived, the view screen showed 3 vessels approaching fast. They were smaller than the Wanderer but heavily armed with weapons ports glowing as they charged. "Pirates," Greg Palmer said grimly. "We're in frontier space, far from any patrol routes. They must think we're an easy target." "Evasive maneuvers," Jacob ordered. "Get us out of here." The pilot, a skilled woman named Beth Crawford, threw the ship into a hard turn. But the pirate ships were faster, cutting off their escape routes with practiced precision. The Wanderer shook as the first weapons blast struck their shields. "Shields holding at 70%, Katie reported. "But we can't take many more hits like that." Jacob gripped the armrests of his command chair, thinking frantically. The Wanderer was a colony ship, not a warship. They had basic defensive weapons, but nothing that could match 3 pirate vessels in a straight fight. They needed an advantage, something the pirates wouldn't expect. That's when Lyra gasped. She had moved to stand near the tactical display, her hands pressed against the console. Her silver markings were glowing brighter than Jacob had ever seen them, pulsing with light in time with her rapid heartbeat. Her eyes had gone distant, unfocused. "Left," she said suddenly. "They go left." "What?" Jacob started to ask, but at that moment, the pirate ship on their port side began to move left exactly as Lyra had predicted. It was trying to flank them, get around their stronger forward shields. "Beth, compensate for movement on our port side," Jacob ordered. The pilot responded immediately, and the pirates' maneuver failed. The enemy ship found itself facing the Wanderer's forward weapons instead of their vulnerable flank. Greg Palmer didn't waste the opportunity, firing a salvo that caught the pirate ship by surprise and damaged its engines. "Behind. Fast," Lyra said, her voice strained. Jacob didn't hesitate this time. Full power to rear shields now. 2 pirate ships appeared from behind an asteroid, firing as they came. But the Wanderer's shields were already reinforced, and the shots merely rattled the ship instead of causing serious damage. Beth spun the ship around and accelerated hard, putting distance between them and their attackers. For the next 10 minutes, Lyra called out the pirates' movements before they happened. Jacob didn't understand how she knew. but he trusted her completely. Left, right, above, below. She sensed their intentions somehow, saw their plans before they executed them. With Lyra's help, Beth flew the Wanderer through the asteroid field with impossible precision, using the space rocks as cover and leading the pirates into traps of their own making. One pirate ship collided with an asteroid trying to follow their maneuvers. Another took damage from the third ship's weapons when Beth positioned the Wanderer just right. Finally, the remaining pirate ships broke off and retreated, damaged and confused by the colony ship's unexpected skill. As soon as they were clear, Lyra collapsed. Jacob caught her before she hit the floor, feeling her body trembling with exhaustion. Her silver markings flickered weakly, barely visible now. "Get Peter to the bridge," Jacob shouted, holding Lyra gently. "Now!" Dr. Grant arrived within minutes and immediately began examining Lyra. "She's exhausted, but she'll be okay. Whatever she just did, it took a lot out of her." He looked at Jacob seriously. "What did she do exactly?" "She knew where the pirates would be before they got there," Jacob said quietly. Like she could read their minds or see the future. Caroline had followed them to the medical bay, and now she spoke up. "Some species have psychic abilities. If Lyra's people are one of them, she might have sensed the pirates' intentions telepathically. It's rare, but not impossible." The news of Lyra's abilities spread through the ship quickly. By the next morning, everyone knew that the alien girl had saved them from the pirates. But the reactions were mixed. Some crew members looked at Lyra with gratitude and respect. She had protected them, used her strange powers to keep them safe. But others looked at her with fear and suspicion. If she could read the pirates' minds, could she read theirs too? What else could she do with those powers? Amanda Pierce wasted no time in calling for a crew meeting. In the ship's largest conference room, over 100 crew members gathered to discuss what should be done about Lyra. "She's dangerous," Amanda argued, standing at the front of the room. "Yes, she helped us this time. But we have no idea what the limits of her powers are. She could be reading our thoughts right now. She could be manipulating us without us even knowing it." "That's ridiculous," Caroline shot back. "Lyra is barely learning to speak our language." "She's not some master manipulator." "You don't know that," someone from the crowd shouted. "Maybe that's exactly what she wants us to think." The argument grew louder, with people taking sides. Some demanded that Lyra be confined to quarters under guard. Others suggested putting her back in cryogenic sleep until they could hand her over to the authorities. A few even suggested spacing her, throwing her out of the airlock. Jacob had heard enough. He stood up and the room gradually fell silent. "I understand you're scared," he began, his voice calm but firm. "What happened yesterday was frightening. Lyra has abilities we don't understand, and that makes us nervous. But let me ask you something. When those pirates attacked, when our lives were in danger, what did Lyra do?" He paused, looking around the room. She didn't hide. She didn't run. She stepped forward and used her powers to save every single person in this room. She put herself at risk, exhausted herself to protect us. Does that sound like someone we should fear? But what if next time she uses her powers against us? Amanda challenged. "Then we'll deal with it," Jacob said. "But we don't punish people for crimes they haven't committed. We don't throw someone in a cell because we're afraid of what they might do someday. That's not who we are. That's not what humanity stands for." He stepped closer to the crowd, making eye contact with as many people as he could. "Our civilization will be judged by how we treat the vulnerable, the different, the ones who need our help." Lyra was kidnapped as a child, imprisoned for years, left to die in a broken cryogenic pod. She woke up alone and terrified in a ship full of aliens, and despite all that, when we needed help, she gave it without hesitation. Jacob's voice grew stronger. "If we turn our backs on her now, if we lock her up or hand her over because we're afraid, then we prove that all our talk about human values is just empty words. We prove that we're no better than the pirates who attacked us, or the people who kidnapped her in the first place." The room was completely silent now. "Lyra stays," Jacob said firmly. "She remains a free member of this crew with the same rights and respect as anyone else. If anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with me personally." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then slowly, people began to nod. Not everyone was convinced, but enough were swayed by Jacob's words. Part 3. Far across the galaxy, in a palace that floated among the clouds of a beautiful violet world, Queen Melissa sat on her throne and listened to news she had heard 1,000 times before. Another false lead. Another dead end. Another failure to find her daughter. The intelligence officer standing before her trembled as he delivered his report. Everyone in the palace knew about the Queen's temper, especially when it came to matters concerning Princess Serafina. 15 years of searching had not diminished her determination, only made it sharper, more dangerous. "The ship was destroyed years ago, Your Majesty," the officer said, his voice barely steady. "There was no sign of the princess." "Then keep looking," Queen Melissa said coldly. Her voice was quiet, but somehow that made it more frightening. "Search every planet in that sector. Question every merchant, every traveler, every criminal. Someone knows something." "Yes, Your Majesty." After the officer left, Lord Nathan approached the throne. He was the Queen's chief advisor, an older man who had served the royal family for decades. He was one of the few people brave enough to speak honestly to her. "Melissa," he said quietly, using her name rather than her title, "you must consider the possibility that Serafina is gone. It has been 15 years. Even if she survived the kidnapping, the chances that she is still alive now are very small." The Queen's silver markings flared with anger, glowing bright against her violet skin. "Do not tell me to give up hope, Nathan. She is my daughter. I feel in my heart that she still lives. A mother knows these things." "I understand your pain," Nathan said gently, "but your obsession is affecting the Empire. Your advisors worry about you. The people worry about you. You have become ruthless in your search, using methods that would have horrified you before Serafina was taken. Methods that will bring my daughter home. Methods that are making enemies. You have interrogated diplomats from allied worlds, seized ships on suspicion alone, threatened war over unproven accusations. The Empire is less stable than it has been in centuries." Queen Melissa stood from her throne, her presence commanding despite her grief. "Let the Empire fall if that is what it takes. I will tear apart every planet in this galaxy if I must. I will not abandon my daughter the way everyone else seems ready to do." Nathan bowed his head, knowing he could not change her mind. "Then at least be careful, my queen. The path you walk is dangerous, for you and for all of us." Over the following days, more reports came in from the intelligence network. The Queen reviewed each one personally, searching for any detail that might lead her to Serafina. Most were worthless rumors and speculation from people hoping to earn a reward. But then came a report that made her pause. A pirate captain, captured during a raid on a commercial convoy, claimed to know about a colony ship that had found something unusual near the old battlefield, where Serafina's ship was last seen. The pirates had attacked the ship, a vessel called the Wanderer, but had been driven off by impossible flying and what seemed like precognitive knowledge of their movements. The colony ship had something aboard, the pirate had told his interrogators. Something that could sense us before we attacked. Something with powers. Queen Melissa's hands shook as she read the report. Her daughter had inherited the royal family's psychic abilities, stronger than any Valorian in generations. If someone aboard that colony ship had used powers like that, "Find this ship," she ordered immediately. "Find the Wanderer. I want its location, its crew roster, everything. And prepare my flagship. I'm going myself." "Your Majesty, that's not wise," Nathan protested. "Let the fleet handle this. If it's another false lead. If there is even the smallest chance that my daughter is on that ship, I will be there." The Queen's voice was absolute. "Ready the fleet. We leave within the hour." The Valorian fleet was a sight that inspired fear across the known galaxy. Their ships were massive, powered by technology that made human vessels look primitive. The weapons they carried could crack planets, and their shields could withstand the most powerful attacks. The Queen's flagship, the Eternal Sky, was the largest and most advanced ship in the fleet, a flying fortress that had never been defeated in battle. Queen Melissa stood on the bridge as her fleet jumped through hyperspace, covering distances in hours that would take human ships weeks. Her silver markings pulsed with barely controlled emotion. Hope, fear, and desperate need all warred inside her. "We're approaching the last known location of the Wanderer," her navigation officer reported. "They're no longer in the sector. Tracking their course now. How long to intercept?" "At maximum speed, 6 hours, Your Majesty." 6 hours. After 15 years of searching, her daughter might be only 6 hours away. The wait felt like torture. As they traveled, Nathan tried once more to counsel caution. If the humans do have Serafina, they may not know who she is. They may be trying to help her. Going in with threats and demands could what? Make them refuse to return her? Let them try. The Queen's eyes were hard as diamonds. Nothing in this universe will keep me from my daughter. Not the humans, not their laws, not their ships. If they have her, they will return her. Or I will take her by force. Nathan saw the determination in her eyes and knew that arguing was useless. The Queen he had known, the wise and just ruler who balanced mercy with strength, had been consumed by her grief. In her place was someone who would burn worlds to get her daughter back. Meanwhile, aboard the Wanderer, Dr. Peter Grant made a discovery that changed everything. He had been studying Lyra's condition for weeks, trying to find some way to reverse the cellular damage caused by the faulty cryogenic pod. He had tried every treatment in his medical database, experimented with different drug combinations, even attempted to synthesize alien compounds based on Lyra's unique biology. Nothing worked. The damage was too fundamental, too deeply woven into her genetic structure. There is one possibility, Peter told Jacob in his office. His face was grave.
Lyra's cells are breaking down because they don't have the right template to repair themselves.
But if we had a genetic sample from a close blood relative, a parent or sibling, we might be able to use it to guide her cells back to their proper structure. You're saying we need to find her family to save her life, Jacob said. Yes. Without that genetic sample, she has maybe 4 months left. With it, I'm confident I can cure her completely. Jacob felt the weight of responsibility settle even heavier on his shoulders. Finding Lyra's family had already been urgent. Now it was literally a matter of life and death. He found Lyra in her quarters, drawing pictures as she often did. Her English had improved dramatically over the past weeks, and now they could have real conversations. He sat down beside her and explained what Peter had discovered. Lyra listened quietly, her silver eyes reflecting the light. When he finished, she was silent for a long moment. "I die?" she asked softly. "Not if I can help it," Jacob promised. "We're going to find your family. Caroline is close to figuring out where your homeworld is. We'll get you there in time." Lyra reached out and took his hand, squeezing it gently. "You good friend, Jacob, best friend. You saved me already. Give me time, give me hope." "We're going to give you a whole lot more than that," Jacob said fiercely. "You're going to live, Lyra. You're going to go home. You're going to see your family again." Lyra smiled, but there was sadness in it. "I scared. What if they not remember me? I was little. Now I grown. What if they not want me?" Jacob pulled her into a hug, feeling her lean against him like a child seeking comfort. "They want you, trust me. Whoever your family is, wherever they are, they've been looking for you. And when we find them, they're going to be so happy to see you." Later that night, Caroline burst into Jacob's quarters with her tablet, her face flushed with excitement. "I found it," she said breathlessly. "I found Lyra's homeworld." She pulled up a star map on the display. "The symbols on the derelict ship, they match historical records from this sector. And the linguistic patterns in Lyra's speech correspond to a language family centered on this planet." She pointed to a beautiful violet world in the cloud layers of a gas giant. "Valoria, home of the Valorian Empire." "Tell me about them," Jacob said. "They're old, Jacob, one of the oldest spacefaring civilizations in this part of the galaxy. Powerful, advanced, and from what I can find in our limited records, ruled by a monarchy. A queen, specifically." Jacob thought about the woman Lyra remembered, the one with the crown. A queen who lost her daughter 15 years ago. Exactly. If my analysis is correct, Lyra isn't just royalty. She's the crown princess of the Valorian Empire. They both stood in silence, understanding the implications. They had been harboring the heir to a powerful alien empire, an empire that was probably searching for her, an empire that might not look kindly on the humans who had her. "We need to contact them," Jacob said. "Let them know we have Lyra and that we want to return her." "That might not be as simple as it sounds," Caroline warned. "We're in uncharted space, weeks away from any human settlement. And we don't have the communication technology to reach across the galaxy. We'd have to physically travel to Valorian space. Then that's what we'll do. Plot a course. Maximum speed. Jacob, if we're wrong about this, we're not wrong. You said it yourself. Everything points to Valoria. And..." Part 4, the alert came at 0400 ship time, waking Jacob from an uneasy sleep. He was on the bridge within 2 minutes, pulling on his jacket as he arrived. Katie stood at her station, her face pale in the glow of the displays. "They came out of nowhere," she said. One moment the sensors were clear, the next we were surrounded. Jacob looked at the view screen and felt his heart sink. At least 20 ships encircled the Wanderer, each one massive and bristling with weapons. They were unlike anything humanity had ever built, elegant and deadly, with hulls that seemed to shimmer with energy. The largest ship sat directly ahead, so huge it could have swallowed the Wanderer whole. "Are they targeting us?" Jacob asked. "Not yet," Greg Palmer reported from Tactical. "But their weapons are charged and ready. They're just waiting. Hail them. Let them know we come in peace." Katie worked her controls for a moment, then shook her head. "They're not responding to our standard frequencies. Wait, something's coming through now." The view screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at the bridge of the alien flagship. It was beautiful and alien, with walls that glowed like captured starlight and displays that floated in the air. And sitting in a throne-like command chair was a woman who took Jacob's breath away. She was Valorian, that was clear immediately. Her skin was the same violet as Lyra's, but her silver markings were far more extensive, covering her arms and face in intricate patterns that pulsed with power. She wore armor that looked ceremonial but deadly, and on her head sat a crown of what looked like crystallized light. Her eyes, silver like Lyra's, were cold and hard as she stared at Jacob through the screen. "I am Queen Melissa of the Valorian Empire," she said, her voice powerful and commanding. The words came through in perfect English, translated by technology far beyond human capabilities. "You are in possession of something that belongs to me. Return it immediately and your ship will be allowed to leave unharmed." Jacob stood straight, forcing himself to meet her gaze despite the fear running through his veins. "I am Commander Jacob Hayes of the Earth colony ship Wanderer. We don't have any Valorian property aboard this ship. We rescued a refugee from a derelict vessel." "A refugee you had no right to take," the Queen interrupted, her markings flaring brighter. "That vessel was within Valorian territory. Its contents were ours to recover. With respect, Your Majesty, the ship was abandoned in neutral space, and its sole occupant was dying in a failing cryogenic pod. We provided medical care and sanctuary to someone in need." Queen Melissa leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "You dare to lecture me about sanctuary? That person you so nobly rescued was stolen from me 15 years ago. You are harboring my property, Commander Hayes, and I am rapidly losing my patience." Jacob felt anger rise in his chest at her words. "She's not property. She's a person, a young woman who has been through incredible trauma, and we've been caring for her, protecting her, trying to find a way to return her home safely. Then you know who she is. We know she's Valorian. We suspected she might be royalty based on certain markers in her speech and behavior. That's why we changed course for Valoria. We were bringing her home." For the first time, the Queen's mask of anger slipped slightly, showing something that might have been surprise or confusion. "You were bringing her home?" "Yes. We were hoping to make contact with your government, explain the situation, and return her to her family." Jacob paused. "Tell me, Your Majesty, does the name Lyra mean anything to you?" The Queen's reaction was immediate and visceral. Her markings blazed so bright they hurt to look at, and for a moment Jacob saw raw emotion on her face, grief and hope and desperate need all mixed together. "Where did you hear that name?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "She told it to us. When we first made contact, when we were trying to establish communication. Lyra was the first word she spoke to us." Queen Melissa stood from her throne, moving closer to the view screen. "I need to see her now." "Not yet," Jacob said firmly, and he saw shock on the Queen's face that anyone would dare refuse her. "Lyra is safe and under medical care. She's been through a terrible ordeal, and I won't put her through more trauma by forcing her to." "You think you can refuse me?" The Queen's voice was dangerous now. "I could destroy your ship with a single command. I could take what I want and leave no trace you ever existed." "You could," Jacob agreed, "but you won't. Because if Lyra really is who you think she is, if she really is your daughter, then she's been watching this entire conversation." He gestured off screen, and Lyra stepped into view of the view screen. The effect on Queen Melissa was instantaneous. She made a sound that was almost a sob, her hand coming up to her mouth. For a long moment she just stared, her eyes drinking in every detail of Lyra's face. Lyra stared back, confusion and recognition warring in her expression. She tilted her head, studying the Queen with an intensity that Jacob had only seen when she was trying to remember something important. "I know you," Lyra said softly in English, then switched to Valorian. words that Caroline's equipment translated. I know your face. From dreams. From before, Serafina, the queen whispered. My daughter. My little star. Hearing the name seemed to unlock something in Lyra's memory. Her silver markings began to glow and her eyes went distant. Jacob knew that look. She was remembering. And then, quietly, hesitantly, Lyra began to sing. It was a lullaby in the Valorian language, simple and sweet. The melody was haunting, full of love and safety and comfort. Lyra's voice was unpracticed, the words uncertain, but she knew the song. Somehow, after 15 years, she still remembered. Queen Melissa's composure shattered completely. Tears ran down her violet face as she listened to her daughter sing the lullaby she had sung to her every night before the coup. The song she had whispered to herself in the dark years after Serafina was taken, hoping against hope that her daughter was still alive somewhere to hear it. When Lyra finished, the silence stretched between the two ships like a physical thing. I remember you, Lyra said quietly. Not everything, but pieces. Your voice, your arms. Feeling safe. She touched her chest. I remember here, in heart. Let me see you, Queen Melissa said, her voice breaking. Let me come to your ship, please. Lyra looked at Jacob, uncertainty in her eyes. He understood her hesitation. This woman might be her mother, but Lyra didn't really remember her. The queen was a stranger, however powerful their connection might be. Lyra makes the choice, Jacob said firmly, looking at the queen. Not me, not you, her. If she wants to meet you, we'll arrange it. But it happens on her terms. Queen Melissa looked like she wanted to argue, to demand, to command, but she saw the way Lyra stood close to Jacob, the way she trusted him, and something in the queen's expression shifted. I understand, she said with visible effort. Serafina, Lyra, I know you don't remember me. I know I am a stranger to you now. But I am your mother, and I have searched for you every day for 15 years. If you will allow me to come to your ship, if you will give me the chance to prove who I am, I swear on my crown and my life that I will not harm you or anyone aboard your vessel. Lyra was quiet for a long moment, her hand finding Jacob's and squeezing tight. Then she nodded slowly. You can come, she said, but Jacob stays with me. And if I scared you, leave. The queen's face showed a mix of pain and understanding. Her daughter was setting conditions, treating her like a potential threat. But she nodded. Agreed. I will bring only a small guard detail, and we will respect your wishes completely. 2 hours later, a Valorian shuttle approached the Wanderer. Jacob stood in the docking bay with Lyra, Greg, and a full security team. He had insisted on the security despite Lyra's protests, and to his surprise, the Queen had not objected. The shuttle door opened, and Queen Melissa stepped out. In person, she was even more imposing than on the view screen. She was tall and regal, her presence commanding the room without effort. Her silver markings covered most of her visible skin in patterns so complex and beautiful they seemed like art. The crown on her head was made of some material that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow colors. Behind her came 4 guards, each one armed and alert, but the Queen had kept her word. It was a minimal escort, nothing threatening. Queen Melissa's eyes locked on Lyra, and Jacob saw naked hunger in her gaze. The hunger of a mother who had been separated from her child for 15 years. She took a step forward, then stopped herself, waiting for permission. Lyra's grip on Jacob's hand was tight enough to hurt, but she didn't move away. She studied the Queen with the same intensity the Queen studied her. You look like me, Lyra said finally. Our marks. Same pattern. Yes, the Queen said, her voice gentle despite its power. You have my markings and your father's eyes. You look so much like him. She reached into her armor and pulled out a small holographic projector. With a gesture, she activated it. The hologram showed a younger Queen Melissa, her face softer and full of joy. She was holding a small child with violet skin and silver markings, a little girl who laughed as the Queen spun her around. Another Valorian stood with them, a tall man with kind eyes, his arm around the Queen's shoulders. That is your father, Queen Melissa said quietly. Prince Aldrich. He died in the coup, protecting us. Protecting you. Lyra stared at the hologram, tears forming in her silver eyes. I remember him, a little, he sang. Part 5. The Valorian homeworld was more beautiful than Jacob had imagined. The capital city floated in the upper atmosphere of a gas giant, held aloft by technology Jacob couldn't begin to understand. Massive platforms supported buildings that looked like they were grown rather than built. All elegant curves and crystalline structures that caught the light of two suns and threw it back in brilliant colors. The palace itself was a wonder. It sat at the heart of the city, a sprawling complex of towers and gardens that seemed to defy gravity. As the royal shuttle approached, Jacob could see Valorians gathering in the streets below, word having spread that their lost princess had finally come home. Lyra pressed against the window, her eyes wide with wonder and recognition. "I remember," she whispered. "The towers, the gardens. I played there in gardens." Queen Melissa sat beside her daughter, and she hadn't stopped touching her since they left the Wanderer. Small touches, gentle and constant, as if she needed to keep confirming that Lyra was real and not a dream. "You loved the gardens," the Queen said softly. "You would spend hours there talking to the flowers. Your father and I would find you covered in dirt, your hair full of petals, completely happy." The shuttle landed on a private platform, away from the crowds. Jacob understood the wisdom in that. Lyra was overwhelmed enough without facing thousands of strangers immediately. As they exited the shuttle, Lord Nathan was waiting with a group of officials. He bowed deeply to the Queen, but his eyes were on Lyra, filled with joy and disbelief. "Princess Serafina," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Welcome home. We have prayed for this day for so long." Lyra hid slightly behind Jacob, not ready for the attention. Nathan noticed and turned his gaze to Jacob, and the warmth in his eyes cooled considerably. "And you must be Commander Hayes." The human, the way he said human, made it clear he didn't approve. Jacob met his gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated. "I am. Thank you for allowing me to accompany Lyra." "I did not allow it," Nathan said coldly. "Her Majesty did against my counsel. But you are here now, so we must make the best of it." Queen Melissa's markings flared with irritation. "Nathan, Commander Hayes saved my daughter's life and protected her when no one else could. He will be treated with respect and honor in my palace. Is that understood?" Nathan bowed. "Of course, Your Majesty." But as they entered the palace, Jacob caught the looks from the Valorian officials and guards. Suspicion, curiosity, and in some cases outright hostility. He was an outsider here, an alien in a place that had never seen his kind before. The first few days were difficult. Lyra underwent constant medical examinations as the Valorian physicians worked to reverse the cellular damage from the faulty cryogenic pod. The treatment required genetic material from Queen Melissa, combined with advanced medical technology that Jacob watched with fascination and envy. "It will take several weeks for the treatment to be complete, Dr. Varon," the head physician explained to Jacob one afternoon. "But the princess will make a full recovery. Her cells are already responding well to the therapy." Jacob felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Lyra would live. After all the worry and fear, she would be okay. But while Lyra's body healed, she struggled emotionally. The palace was full of people who knew her as a child but were strangers to her now. They had expectations, memories, and hopes that Lyra couldn't fulfill. She was supposed to be Princess Serafina, heir to the Empire, but she felt like Lyra, the girl who had been rescued by humans and learned to speak English before she could properly speak her own language. She clung to Jacob during these difficult days, finding comfort in his presence when everything else felt strange and overwhelming. He helped her navigate the complex social rules of the Valorian court, sat with her during long ceremonial dinners, and reminded her that it was okay to be confused and scared. Queen Melissa watched their interactions with mixed feelings. She was grateful to Jacob for everything he had done, but she also felt a pang of jealousy every time her daughter turned to the human instead of her. She wanted to be the one Lyra trusted, the one Lyra came to for comfort. But she understood that trust had to be earned, even between mother and daughter. The Valorian court was less understanding. "The human has too much influence over the princess," one courtier complained during a council meeting. "She should be learning our ways, embracing her heritage, not spending all her time with an alien." "Commander Hayes is helping the princess adjust to a difficult situation," Queen Melissa replied firmly. "She has been away from us for 15 years. We cannot expect her to simply resume her old life as if nothing happened. But she must learn to be Valorian again," Lord Nathan argued. "She must learn our language properly, our customs, our history. How can she do that if she spends every moment with someone who knows nothing of our culture?" "She will learn," the Queen said, "in time. but forcing her will only drive her away. I will not lose my daughter again because we pushed too hard, too fast. Despite the Queen's protection, the hostility toward Jacob grew. Servants were cold to him, officials ignored him, and more than once he caught groups of courtiers whispering as he passed, their markings flickering with disapproval. The worst was Lord Nathan. The chief advisor made no secret of his belief that Jacob was a corrupting influence on the princess. He questioned Jacob's motives, suggested that the human was trying to control Lyra for Earth's political gain, and even implied that Jacob had manipulated the princess's emotions during her vulnerable time aboard the Wanderer. "You have no place here," Nathan told Jacob bluntly one evening when they happened to meet in a corridor. "The princess is home now. She has her family, her people. You should return to your ship and leave us to help her heal." "Lyra asked me to stay," Jacob replied calmly, "and until she tells me to leave, I'm staying. You think you know what's best for her? You, an alien who has known her for mere weeks? I have served this royal family for decades. I knew Princess Serafina when she was born. I held her at her naming ceremony. I watched her take her first steps. What do you know of her compared to that?" "I know that she's scared," Jacob said quietly. "I know that she's trying her best to be what everyone wants her to be, but she's not sure who that is anymore. I know that she needs someone who sees her as Lyra, not just as Princess Serafina. Someone who doesn't have expectations or demands, just acceptance." Nathan's markings flared with anger. "You speak as if we do not love her. I know you love her. But love can be suffocating when it comes with too many requirements." The advisor looked like he wanted to argue further, but instead he just turned and walked away, his posture rigid with disapproval. The turning point came 3 weeks after they arrived at the palace. There was an official ceremony scheduled to formally welcome Princess Serafina home. The entire court would be there, along with ambassadors from allied worlds and representatives from every major province of the empire. Lyra would have to stand before thousands of people and accept their congratulations and their expectations. The morning of the ceremony, Jacob found Lyra in her quarters, sitting by the window and staring out at the gardens. She had been crying, her silver markings dim with distress. "I can't do this," she said when Jacob sat beside her. "They want me to give a speech. In Valorian, I barely remember the language. What if I say something wrong? What if I disappoint them?" "You won't," Jacob assured her. "You've been practicing with your mother every day. Your Valorian is getting better all the time, but not good enough. Not like a princess should speak." Lyra turned to look at him, her eyes full of fear. "What if I'm not good enough? What if I never remember how to be Princess Serafina? What if I'm just broken?" Jacob took her hands in his, making her look at him. "Listen to me very carefully, Lyra. You are not broken. You survived something that would have destroyed most people. You were kidnapped, imprisoned, nearly killed, and you came through it with your kindness and courage intact. That's not broken. That's incredibly strong. But everyone wants me to be someone I'm not, someone I can't remember how to be. Then be who you are now. Be Lyra. Be the person who learned English by drawing pictures. Be the person who saved a ship full of humans even though you barely knew them. Be brave enough to stand in front of these people and show them who you've become, not who they remember." Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up, squaring her shoulders. "You will be there? In ceremony? I'll be right there in the front row. And if you get scared or need help, just look at me. I've got your back." The ceremony was held in the grand hall of the palace, a massive space that could hold thousands. The walls were covered in murals depicting the history of the Valorian Empire, and the ceiling showed a perfect illusion of the stars above. Jacob stood among the crowd, uncomfortably aware that he was the only human in a sea of violet skin and silver markings. Some Valorians stared at him with curiosity, others with suspicion, but he kept his eyes on the platform where Lyra would speak. Queen Melissa entered first, her presence commanding immediate silence. She wore her full ceremonial armor, magnificent and imposing, with her crown glowing bright above her head. But when she looked at her daughter, who followed behind with obvious nervousness, her expression softened with love and pride. Lyra wore a dress that was traditional Valorian. Part 6: The assassination attempt changed everything at the palace. Security was increased dramatically, with guards stationed at every entrance and patrols running constantly through the corridors. But more importantly, it changed how the Valorian court viewed Jacob. Where before he had been seen as an outsider and a potential threat, Now he was respected as someone who had proven his loyalty in the most direct way possible. He had fought to protect the princess without hesitation, had put his own life at risk for hers. That kind of courage spoke a language that transcended species. Lord Nathan was among those whose opinion shifted the most dramatically. He came to Jacob's quarters while the medics were finishing treating the wound on his arm. "I owe you an apology, Commander Hayes," Nathan said, his voice sincere. "I judged you harshly based on my own prejudices and fears. But you have shown me that honor and courage are not limited to one species. You have shown me that the princess's trust in you is well-founded." Jacob accepted the apology with a nod. "You were protecting Lyra in the way you thought best. I can't fault you for that. Still, I was wrong about you. And more importantly, I was wrong about what the princess needs." Nathan sat down looking tired. "I wanted her to become the child we lost, to erase the last 15 years and return to who she was. But that's impossible, isn't it? She's someone new now, shaped by experiences we can't fully understand. And that person she's become, this combination of Valorian and human influences, might be exactly what we need." "What do you mean?" "The Empire has been isolated for too long," Nathan explained. "We deal with a handful of allied species, but we've always seen ourselves as superior, as having nothing to learn from younger civilizations. But you humans, with your emphasis on individual choice and personal freedom, you have ideas that could benefit us. And the princess, having experienced both cultures, could be the bridge between our worlds." It was a profound shift in thinking, and Jacob understood the courage it took for Nathan to admit it. "Lyra is special," he agreed. "She has the potential to do amazing things. But she needs time to grow into that potential. She needs support, not pressure." "She has it," Nathan promised. "From me, from